I'm J. Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our very favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X-books that come out each week, and this week is the week of November 18th.
We've got one X-book proper and two somewhat dubious editions on the side. Let's go for it. First up, we've got Extraordinary X-Men number 2, written by Jeff Lemire, drawn by Humberto Ramos, inked by Victor Olazaba, and colored by Edgar Delgado. I want to like this book. It's got what feel like they should be all of the components of a really good comic. It's got a terrific creative team, it's got a very, very solid cast lineup, and it's got a pretty strong premise, but it's just not really coming together for me. It's not grabbing my attention, and I'm not finding myself really engaged with it or really feeling that invested in the story.
Yeah, I'm finding myself kind of on the same page, which is a shame, because like you said, all the components are exactly what they should be. I mean, I do still maintain that once we get past this awkward sort of introductory arc, or even maybe as we get further into it, I can see the seeds of a good, possibly even great book. But we're really not there yet. I do think number 2, this issue, it grabbed me a lot more than number 1 did. In fact, parts of me wish that a slightly tweaked version of it had just been number 1. Yeah. But still, it's not exactly there yet, especially not for the flagship X title.
I feel like maybe this and whatever comes after it should have been the first issue, because it's also decompressed to just a slog that kind of feels like it's dragging through the story. And it's not exactly a bad story. It's sort of a not story yet, which is also part of the problem, that we've had 2 issues of what feels like setup, but it's set up where we can't know most of the pieces in play, because there's also this big game of I know something you don't know with whatever happens in the 8-month gap. I'm really frustrated. I want this book to be good, but I also want to be able to follow it. I want to have something to follow in it, and there's just nothing yet.
Mm-hmm. That said, there are definitely some elements that do work. I really like seeing Colossus and Magic, the Rasputins, work together.
I love seeing Ramos draw Colossus and Magic. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. Ramos is an excellent artist, and his stylization, I think, really does work well with this sort of in-your-face, 4-color, very comic booky feel that Lemire seems to be going for. I dig that. And Lemire writes the voices of a lot of the characters well. I like his Jean a lot. I think he really captures the passion of especially the younger version of the character. I like his Colossus and Magic, like we were just talking about. There's good stuff. I mean, the creative team, they know what they're doing. I just want to see it come together. I mean, I almost wish we could wait for the trade and then review this retroactively.
The creative team knows what they're doing. I just really wish that they'd let the rest of us in on it.
Next is Deadpool and Cable Split Second number 1 through 3, actually. More on that in a sec. Written by Fabian Nicieza, with pencils and inks by Riley Brown, and colors by Jim Charalampadas.
I should note that Brown is also responsible for the story. Nicieza just solo scripted. I should also note, and this is important, that the fact that we're reviewing this does not make Deadpool a member of the X-Men. We're doing it for Cable.
That's right. That being said, this really is more of a Deadpool story. In fact, the title page of the first issue calls itself Deadpool Split Second, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the original title and they only added the "and Cable" later on in the road when it was solicited.
On the other hand, the credits are also largely in yellow on white background, so I feel like a lot of the design might have been kind of an afterthought here.
That may be the case. So this is an infinite comic, which means it's, for the moment, digital only, digital first, and we're going to see, I believe, 3 printed copies, each with 2 digital issue equivalents within it, come out later. Just like we did with X-Men 92, we'll be reviewing these as they come out, sort of. We actually forgot about the first 2, and they were already out by the time we got number 3. So we're going to be talking about all 3 of the first 3 issues right now.
You know, I'm actually kind of glad of that, because I think both of us actually liked issue 3 a lot better than 1 and 2. I wouldn't have recommended it based on the first 2 issues. With 3 in the bag, I'm really actually enjoying this book a lot.
Yeah, there's a definite tonal shift, because when it starts out, it's a lot of what I personally don't enjoy about Deadpool. Like, I'm all about dark humor, that's fine, but a lot of the humor is murdering a whole lot of people, which personally doesn't do it for me. Your mileage may vary.
The addition of Cable, I mean, we already know that these guys make great mutual foils, that Cable is the eternal effective straight man to Deadpool, and vice versa. And yeah, it works here. It works really well. It's fun. I'm not as sold on it as an infinite comic as I was on 92, which I felt like really took advantage of that medium in a lot of ways. With this one, I would probably wait for the issues.
Yeah, there are some cool little things. Again, in issue number 3, where everything seems to come together, as far as people teleporting in and out of time within certain panels, and that's a cool infinite comic effect. I also did like the credits kind of coming up, flashing over certain panels at the beginning of the first issue, felt very cinematic. So let's talk a little bit about what this is all about. As the title would suggest, it's about time travel. And issue number 3 introduces the concept of time loops that I suspect are going to be a part of the rest of the series, as Cable and Deadpool basically Groundhog Day it through the same scene over and over, which actually is kind of hilarious.
You know what issue 3 very, very much felt like to me, and it's kind of ironic. You'll know why in a second. Dr. McNinja.
Yeah, actually,
it
totally
had very
did.
much that feel and that sensibility, which kind of fits because Chris Hastings was hugely influenced by earlier Deadpool and went on to actually write the title for a while. Not this run, alas. But yeah, it's got that same sort of fun and self-awareness. That's what feels like it's missing from the early issues. Like, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, but the book itself doesn't really feel self-aware. It doesn't really feel like it's quite in on the character's joke.
Yeah,
and in 3, it clicks much, much better as a whole.
Yeah. So, as for whether you should get this, I would say if you're a Deadpool fan, you should. He's still not an X-Man, but you should. If you're a Cable fan, it's much less about Cable, but if you enjoy humor in your comics, you know?
Yeah, if you like fun hijinks, time travel ninja adventure loops, I mean, it's a genuinely really enjoyable book. Finally, and somewhat tangential to all of this, we have the short story The Bear Without Fear from Secret Wars 2 TOO #1, written and drawn by Ryan Brown, better known for his series God Hates Astronauts. I'm not quite sure what to say about this story. Like, I kind of feel like it's a thing.
This is legitimately one of the strangest things I have ever read, especially in a book with the Marvel logo on the cover.
Now, as longtime advocates of more superheroes being replaced by bears, I feel like we really have no choice but to support this.
That's true. So it's, as the title would suggest, it's kind of a Daredevil story, except Daredevil's a bear, and so is Foggy Nelson, but not the other Foggy Nelson.
But it might be that Daredevil's a bear who ate Daredevil, got it, and then went around in his costume.
Yeah.
But there are layers, man. Layers.
What there are that makes it extra related is 3 Cyclopses and a Wolverine as the main characters of part of it. It's a very short story.
Characters. So Secret Wars 2 TOO is kind of a slapdash madcap, weird little interstitial shorts book. The best one by far and away in it is a Doctor Doom story by Eric Powell, which is absolutely delightful.
It's 2 pages, it's great.
Yeah, it's lovely. It is precisely what I was hoping for out of this. Yeah, this story is itself, and I kind of like how description defiant it is.
If you're a fan of Cyclops being made fun of mercilessly, then you will enjoy this, because that happens. Wolverine deflects all 3 of their optic blasts into their crotches at one point.
Also, if you've always hoped to see Wolverine mauled to death by a bear, this one's for you. It's like a present. A bear present. An angry bear present. Also, Foggy Nelson makes a really cute bear.
He really does. I mean,
really,
in both ways, kind of.
Yeah, like, I kind of want a Foggy Nelson teddy bear now.
That's legit.
Bear.
Yeah.
But mauling.
Mauling.
Yeah, it's a story. It is definitely a story that is told in comics format in this issue.
That cannot be denied. So that was a weird week. Jay, what's our favorite comic?
I can't believe I am saying this out loud, in my voice, with words. But our issue of the week is Deadpool and Cable Split Second Infinite Comic #3.
Yeah, I was prepared to hate the hell out of this series after the first 2, and then 3 totally turned it around. It's a great issue.
I mean, I don't think I ever even quite hated it, but yeah, 3 is fun. It went from pretty decent to really delightful.
Who knew?
What's our panel of the week?
Our panel of the week is from Extraordinary X-Men #2. So there's an entity called Cerebra, which is like a sentient Cerebro, we think, we're not really sure, in the body of a Sentinel that Forge put together. And I really love the body language that Humberto Ramos draws in this panel. I mean, it's a Sentinel, which we're used to seeing as these evil killing machines, but in this very human, almost childlike, innocent pose, and it's a really cool way of showing and not telling.
There's actually another panel very similar to this that was kind of in top contention that I'm just going to pop up too, because the body language around the Sentinel throughout this issue is really neat and does a lot with, I mean, it conveys a huge amount of story just in very simple, very straightforward ways.
That's all we have for you this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, but think it would be way better if you couldn't actually see our faces, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week?
So this week we are finishing our pre-Fall of the Mutants coverage with some X Factor. So we have Archangel finally revealed, we have Cameron Hodge finally 100% officially, now we're sure this time, becoming a supervillain.
We were pretty sure already.
We were, and we see him in the dumbest, awesomest, dumbest battle armor possibly in the history of X-Men.
Oh man, it really is. That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at rachelandmiles.com are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported and ad-free project that is made possible by those fine folks, and if you would like to join their ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, supporters. Thank you, watchers. Thank you, listeners, who I guess if you're not a watcher, you're not actually going to see this, but still, we'll
like
see it.
Watchers like at the other end, or watchers like Uatu?
Bare legs and all. We'll see you next week. One bear was naked.
Most bears are naked.
He was a naked human man.
Foggy Nelson Bear is not naked. He wears a cunning suit.
He's Natalie attired.
He is. He's a Natalie attired bear.
Best kind.
Yeah. No. Maybe.